Thank you, Ms. Croker, for being with us today. Appreciate having you here to help our community look at healthy fasting for people who have medical concerns and our diabetes program. And we certainly appreciate the fantastic educational material that your office provided. And so I'll be happy for our members to take a look at all that you have given to us. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we are doing at the church here a fasting program, and I was surprised to learn that fasting can be helpful for our body's digestive system anyway. But so can you start us off on talking about that and how people who may have diabetes or other medical concerns or medications can still participate in a healthy way?
Yes, ma'am. Do you mind if I share my PowerPoint?
Oh, absolutely. Hold on just a minute.
Thank you.
Let me do this share screen so we can see what you have. Go right ahead.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll be talking about managing diabetes while maintaining healthy eating habits.
Okay.
So a lot of people with diabetes may think that it's hard to find healthy things to eat, but really, after listening to this presentation, it'll be easier.
Okay.
So as you guys may know, it's 3 types of diabetes out there. The first type is type 1 diabetes. So that's a chronic condition in which the pancreas makes little or no insulin. The causes are genetics, family history, geography, and age. The symptoms are frequent urination, excessive thirst, extreme hunger, blurred vision or irritability, or even sudden weight loss. And the treatment methods, as everyone may know, diabetes has no cure. Treatment is using insulin to manage the amount of sugar in the blood and monitoring lifestyle and dietary changes to prevent any further complications. The other one is type 2 diabetes. That's a chronic condition in which the pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin and your body's cells responds poorly to the insulin and takes in less sugar. So the causes of type 2 is cells in muscle, fat, and the liver that become resistant to insulin, resulting in the cells not taking in enough sugar. The pancreas can't make enough insulin to keep blood sugar levels within a healthy range. Type 2 diabetes, the symptoms they're similar to type 1, but just a little different. So the different symptoms are pain and tingling in your hands and feet, frequent infections, and also fatigue. The treatment methods include losing weight, eating well, and exercising, or if you're not doing well with that, you can get on diabetes medication, insulin therapy, because it can be used to also manage the condition. And the last form of diabetes is gestational diabetes. It's a form of diabetes that can develop during pregnancy in women who already do not have diabetes.
You don't have to worry about me getting that one.
Yes, and no, ma'am, not over here either.
No.
And the causes occurs when your body can't make enough insulin during your pregnancy. So some treatment methods are to check your blood sugar, eat healthy food in the right amounts at the right times, be active, monitor your baby. I know one of my friends from college, she had gestational diabetes and she noticed like her blood pressure would get high. And so that could be a symptom. I had done some research the other day to see if there were any other symptoms of gestational diabetes in pregnant women. There's not really any information that really gave me the answer to that question. So you just gotta check in with your doctor, ask questions, and just make sure you're okay and you're on the right track. This is like the fun part. So the diabetes plate method, this is actually a free website that you could sign up for using your email. And it's basically a method that's an easy way to create healthy meals to help manage blood sugar levels. It makes it easier to create perfectly portioned meals with a healthy balance of veggies, carbs, and protein without calculating or weighing. So I actually went on this website probably last week because I
Mhm.
gave another diabetes presentation,
Okay.
and it's actually pretty cool. So when you sign up, like I said before, it's free. It like gives you as y'all can see, the half portion of the
Mhm.
starchy vegetables and then the quarters of the carbs and the protein foods. It gives you actual recipes that are healthy and it doesn't affect, you having diabetes.
Okay.
So that's that website right there.
Uh-huh. Oh boy, healthy eating.
Don't get scared. So we're gonna start with the first tip, which is non-starchy vegetables. The pros of non-starchy vegetables is that it doesn't raise your blood sugar because they are lower in carbs. They're high in vitamins, minerals, and fiber. So some examples of non-starchy vegetables are asparagus, cabbage, cucumbers, leafy greens, squash, or tomatoes. So filling half of your plate, which is like 50% of your plate, with non-starchy vegetables will give your body plenty of servings of superfoods.
Superfoods, okay.
Mhm. And then tip number 2 is your proteins.
Mhm.
It's healthier to eat lean proteins because they're lower in fat and saturated fats. They're a healthier choice and they're high in protein. So some examples of lean protein foods are fish such as salmon or tilapia, shellfish like shrimp or lobster, chicken, turkey, and eggs, of course. Um, you can eat pork, such as tenderloin chop or tenderloins, or if you're like a vegetarian, you can have plant-based meat substitutes, and that's also considered healthy when having diabetes.
Big food, plant-based meat substitute. Oh, is
Yes,
that,
ma'am.
is that like tofu?
Yes, that's correct.
That can be good because you season it up and it takes on the taste of whatever you season it with.
Yep, that's correct.
Just has a different texture. Okay.
And then, so when you have your dinner plate, if you fill up 25% or a quarter of your plate with lean protein foods, that's still considered healthy in the range of having, the disease of diabetes.
Okay.
And another quick tip is your carbs.
Mm.
They have the greatest effect on blood sugar in a positive way. Some examples of carbohydrate foods are whole grains, such as brown rice, popcorn, bread,
Mm-hmm.
tortillas, starchy vegetables, of course, beans, such as black pinto kidney. Black beans are actually really good.
Mm-hmm.
Fruits and dried fruit, and then also dairy products such as milk, soy milk, and yogurt. So having 25%, the other 25% or a quarter of your dinner plate, actually with having carbs on it, keeps your blood sugar levels from getting too high after having meals.
I think in America, we're used to having the protein as the larger part of
Yes,
the plate.
ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
I agree,
Yeah.
but that larger part has to be those vegetables. So
Okay.
they kind of like flop it.
Okay.
And the last tip is beverages.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, water has no calories or carbs, so that's obviously the best choice and the number one choice to go with. Or you can also try zero or low calorie drinks, which is also the second best choice. With those, you just have to make sure you look at the sodium levels sometimes, see if they have sodium in it.
Okay,
And
so now I notice aspartame in like Pepsi Zero that doesn't have sugar, but aspartame, isn't that a carcinogenic?
I can see. I could check in about that and see, because
Yeah,
that's new to me too.
yeah,
So you're teaching me
aspartame.
something.
Yeah, because it's great because people will order like a Big Mac, order fries, but then a sugar-free drink. Like that like that balances out. Having a cheeseburger and fries is to drink
Hmm.
a sugar-free soda.
Right.
But
It's
yeah,
not always the best choice.
yeah, but look up that aspartame. It's a
Sure will.
carcinogenic. So that does leave us mainly with water, it seems, which
Yeah, pretty much.
Mhm.
And even with like putting fruits in your water, you have
Uh-huh.
to be careful because there might be too much sugar in
Ah,
certain fruits. So,
mm.
and even like what is those? The little
Yeah.
the little things you could pour in the water.
Crystal light that you pour powder that
Hmm.
you pour into your
You
water.
got to be careful with that too because sometimes it's too much sugar. So,
Okay.
but the examples of beverages that you can drink is
Mhm.
unsweetened tea, unsweetened coffee, sparkling water.
Mm,
That's really good without added sugars. You could try club soda
mhm.
and sometimes diet soda. And you could also do flavored water, but you just have to watch out for, the sugars and everything. So basically choosing water or a zero or low calorie drink has no effect on your blood sugar, but you should always go with water. So here are the resources that I use. This is the link for the diabetes meal plan recipes. It actually has like a list of recipes. It's really cool. They have like stuff for dinner, appetizers, dessert, lunch. That's
Mm,
very resourceful. And then also I have the website up here about the diabetes plate method that you can sign up
mhm.
for that's free. So these are the most two important
Okay,
resources.
I heard you say dessert menu. It's always good to start with dessert in case you don't have room for it later, right?
Yes, ma'am.
After a big meal, it's like, oh, I'm full. I don't have room for dessert. So let me eat that first.
Mm-hmm. But I thank you very much, Miss Denise, for having me. It was a pleasure talking about diabetes. Now, do you or does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, oh, well, yeah, I did have a list of questions from some of our participants and you covered it well, and especially with the website links that you provided. And so seems like the biggest thing for each of our participants is to check with their doctors first before participating in fasting, because fasting, going without food for a set amount of time would that raise or lower your blood sugar? What's the risk for people with diabetes? Is it that their blood sugar would drop?
According to WebMD,
Mm-hmm.
the biggest danger of fasting if you have diabetes is that your blood sugar levels could be dangerously low, you know, and that's being called hypoglycemia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Could
Yes.
make it low.
Okay. So they should check with their doctor, or perhaps our participants can monitor themselves or not go on a full fast, but maybe just smaller portions, perhaps.
I agree.
Might be a good idea.
But I would most definitely check
Mhm,
with my primary care doctor
mhm,
or health professional and see, because everybody's body's different and
mhm,
some people's body can't handle what another person's body could. So I would most
mhm.
definitely check with them first.
Okay, good. Anything else we need to know?
Um, like I said before, with diabetes, you can also like I said, lower your portion sizes.
Mhm,
Take that diabetes my plate method and have 50% of your plate with those non-starchy vegetables, the 25% with carbs, and then the other 25% with lean protein. And you should be good because it's not going to raise your blood sugar levels if you eat it like that.
yeah,
And then also exercising. Try exercising.
Yeah, you did leave that out at first, so which is
Not
fine,
easy.
but that is important. Staying mobile for older citizens like myself is pretty important.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Staying mobile, still drinking a lot of water because water is very good for you. And also, if you find that exercising doesn't really work for you or you don't see any change in like in your body,
Mhm.
basically you could go to your primary care doctor again or a health professional and they could put you on medication, diabetes medication, that'll help you or even insulin therapy.
Okay, well, good. Well, Ms. Croker, you have been very helpful, and we are so happy to learn of all the resources that we have right down the street on Ramsey Street that's available to all of our citizens. So
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
thank you so
And
much.
I also wanted to let you know that on August 15th and 16th, if you would be interested, I'll send you an email about it too.
Mhm.
If you would like to work with, well, come to the health department from 9 to 1 p.m. Me and my coworker Dolores are doing a master trainer session. It's like for Matter of Balance. Have you heard of that?
Matter of balance.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
It's like,
that's new.
yes, it's for like the older population. If you work with other people like of the older population who are afraid of falling,
Hmm.
you can help them with exercises. You'll be licensed to help them do appropriate exercises that help them so they won't be afraid of falling or getting some type of physical movement in their body.
Wow, I'm glad you said that out loud. What a well-kept secret. Yeah, because at our church, we have a senior exercise program that meets twice a week. So I'll certainly pass this on to them so that
Yes, ma'am.
they can be aware. Thanks for telling us about it. So we would find that you're going to send me an email
Yes, ma'am, I
and
am.
that'll have the contact information for them to sign up, and I will pass that on to them as soon as I get it. And you'll see some
Okay.
old folks showing up, ready to
Yes, we're
learn
here to
something
help.
new.
Here to help.
Great. Thank you so much again, young lady. Thanks so much for being here. Steve Sandra is a PA and was a medic in the Army. So he works with folks. Well, in his population, he has lots of folks who have concerns with diabetes, obesity, and high blood pressure. So in our Fasting in Fayetteville program, as we started, the first thing we wanted to do was to have a professional to talk to us about the possibility of safe fasting while being on diabetic medication or other medications or health concerns. And we had a wonderful nurse that was able to meet with us and share some slides, which I don't have a copy of, but folks have asked for that information. So we appreciate you coming on, Doc, to update us with that. Because I was surprised to learn from Nurse Jean that not diabetes, that fasting is a health benefit outside of the spiritual benefit. So that was news for me.
And that's something that is really starting to become more and more apparent as the more I dig into both the spiritual, biological sides of it, of how they line up. How I don't think anything is going to exist in its own vacuum, as in just a biological health benefit or just the way it's created and the layers that it all comes together. It seems that there's just a lot of intermeshing between the two.
Yeah. So I was surprised to learn that from Nurse Jean. Do you have your slides that you had sitting
It's hard to even think when. So I kind of began my fasting journeys probably 2017. Probably I'd say it was about the right time. Doing intermittent fasting. Um, typically 2 meals a day. It was right when ketogenic diets were really starting to become popular. This is all in the military community, and particularly the one that I was in. We had really great nutritionists that would work with our units and help design meal plans for soldiers who were going to be deployed, getting ready to deploy, short time frames, typically like 4 months, needing to be at the top of your game. And then what happens when we transition back? Because there's a lot of medical issues arising in 20-year-old retiree, or not 20-year-old, but 20-year retirees who you first blush look at are appearing very healthy, very fit, just by a once overview. But then you start finding out, well, no, that we have sleep apnea, chronic fatigue, diabetes even. And so that was kind of really my first touch into what happens when we don't shut off. And that was kind of how it was talked about. Like, we can turn on and we think of like the Hugh Jackman 5,000 calories a day diet to do Wolverine type movies. We know how to turn on, but the turning off has been the issue. And so once I came across the book, The Circadian Code, it just kind of all clicked into place, and has really been a life changer for me in how I approach dietary lifestyles. So this is kind of putting a little bit of cart before, but I don't even like using the term fasting anymore. And we'll get into it a little bit here in a second, but in terms of the scientific community can take God out of everything or anything, and in terms of with our meal plans, I think it does that to some extent, because we have the definition of or the term ad libitum used to, which means at one's pleasure, as basically your unlimited eating. And we all kind of know what goes on when anything is at your own pleasure or by your own design. And yet if you go away from that, now it's time restricted. Now it's fasting. Now, that just doesn't, there's no middle ground. Like, fasting to me is a difficult process. You are going without. Whereas ad libitum, there is, and so there's got to be somewhere in between, and that's where the circadian rhythm of it really clicked more so for me. So to kind of get into what the circadian rhythm is for people and touch on that a little bit, if we can go ahead and go to the next slide. And one of the first people who kind of got me turned on to this was Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist for Stanford, I believe, talking about low angle light in the morning and afternoon and why you need to be exposed to it. And, it's just a little brief YouTuber clip or something like that, and didn't really dig too far into it. But then once I got the circadian code, which I have no idea how I came by getting that, it all fell into sense. So this right here, this slide is more of a image of, and I don't want to get into, like, this is just to show what all has a circadian rhythm in our body. And it's essentially every single organ. There are some cells that are not controlled by our master switch in the brain, our master circadian rhythm clock, but they still have their own innate circadian rhythm to it.
Can you explain circadian rhythm for people who may not know that term?
So circadian is, my Latin's a bit rough from high school, but essentially the circle of the day. So when we think about 24 hours, we think around a clock, everything's kind of circular, the sun going around, or it's going around the sun, but as we look at it, as we see it, the sun going around, night, day, and it creates a pattern. And it seems like, we live a lot by our watch instead of, or more so than anything else. So a lot of people that I talk with, they're like, what time do you have dinner? Every night it's 7 o'clock. Without in summer, nope, 7 o'clock. What about winter? Nope, 7 o'clock. So, kind of the main setup for it begins in the eyes. We have very special receptors, and everybody has these. Even blind people have them. They aren't receptors in terms of necessarily sight, but in color change. And so they're called melanopsin receptors. There's a bigger, longer name and abbreviations, but melanopsin will work fine. So it picks up in the morning at sunrise, it picks up the change from blue light to yellow light. And that transition of light wavelength activates those cells that then send a signal to our SCN, suprachiasmatic nucleus, sitting in the brain. It's our master control switch. And so it then starts releasing all of the neurotransmitters and hormones for the rest of our body to start the work, eat, stress cycle of the day. And then at night, or not at night, but at sunset, the transition from yellow going to blue then activates the SCN again, or the melanopsin receptors again, to go back to inhibiting, or actually it seems that the baseline state of the SCN is to release melatonin, and the light change, the daylight, actually inhibits it. So it's almost like it takes off that restrictor plate, and then the SCN is then able to get the signals to the body to start releasing the melatonin.
Okay, so if that is the natural pattern that should be, what is it, at least in American culture, that people are sluggish in the morning and they have to have their Starbucks before they get started? And this is young people.
Yes. And the main thing about, this kind of goes back to a little bit with breathing. If you think of an inhale and an exhale and you wanted to number them, what would you start with? Vast majority, just guessing here, but the vast majority of people would start with an inhale being 1 and the exhale being 2. Whereas we really need to think of it more as the exhale being the beginning, and then the inhale being the number 2. Same thing kind of goes with the day. We think of the day as the day starting and then it becomes night. It's more that we should think of it as the night begins the day and sets up the day, and then the day is the final portion, the second half of it.
That's what Genesis says, evening and morning was the first.
We're the first day. Yep. And I get the synchronicities and the lining up of all of the biological with the spiritual, religious aspects of it. There's a lot of it. And so a lot of it comes with, we don't get enough sleep at night starting off. And so that then jet lags our body. And well, we'll start from with the day aspect of it first. So once the circadian rhythm is set, the first hour, there's always a little bit of play after, some things turning off, some things turning on, need to go away, and we need to give it a little bit of a buffer. So it's always recommended to not eat for the first hour after the sunrise or the first hour after you get up. Now, the thing with the coffee is that our brains have a chemical, adenosine, that is also responsible for some of our sleepiness and tiredness. And it naturally goes away and dissipates on its own in about 60 to 90 minutes. However, if we drink the coffee, then it blocks the receptor that the adenosine was hitting, causing the drowsiness. And once the caffeine wears off, that adenosine didn't go anywhere. It's still waiting right there where it was to jump back onto the receptor sites that the caffeine was just on. And now we become tired again. So that's where the kind of proverbial caffeine crash comes from. Is we didn't wait long enough before. And so if we wait and do the 60 minutes, 90 minutes, start our exercise, do our intentions for the day, or journaling, however it is you want to structure your day, by the time that's done, you're not usually that tired. But if the first thing you go do in the morning is start your cup of coffee and start chugging on it, then you kind of have this vicious cycle that you set up potentially.
Okay. All right. Fascinating. Okay.
So
are you following all this?
she may be asleep, I think.
Son, oh, you're muted. I was saying.
I was muted. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm following this and it's great.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can keep going. But I've been trying to not take a nap during the day since I read about this. But anyway, okay. Ready for the next slide?
Yeah, and so just to tie it kind of a little bit into it, so everything has a circadian rhythm in our body. We can't get away from it. It's just a matter of whether or not it's controlled by the SCN in the brain or it's not. And so, yeah, if we can go to the next slide.
You think I've done something here? I don't.
Oh, is it kind of glitching a little bit?
Is that it?
There we go. Okay. Yep. Perfect. And so, you mentioned being we can always identify a single reason or two reasons, but when it comes down to it, there are thousands of reasons. Just in terms of just the I don't know if it was on the other side, but turning tryptophan into melatonin. A minimum 4-step process of just that in and of itself, then plus all of the other coenzymes and enzymes that need to come into that. So
Now, what is tryptophan?
So it's a amino acid. You think of Thanksgiving turkey, you get tired after that.
Right.
The tryptophan in it. Well, the tryptophan then gets converted into the melatonin, which can lead into some of that tiredness after. But it's more so just how many steps are involved in everything, just how complicated everything is that goes on in the body, and just trying to say, well, don't do this. I mean, it's good advice, but there's a lot of factors that go into it. So what this slide is just intended to show is once our SCN is no longer inhibited to prevent its production of melatonin or the signaling for the pituitary to release the melatonin, melatonin, and we'll just focus on that one specifically, it shuts down so much of normal body functions that we had been doing throughout the day. So the daytime is our time to work, eating is work. It's our time to stress. The sun cannot burn any brighter than it does. Nobody can yell at the sun for not burning bright enough. My personal perspective is, as long as you can still move during the daylight, try to do something to essentially burn as bright as you can. But once that melatonin starts being released, it begins the shutdown process, because during our nighttime phase, we need our healing to start occurring. And that doesn't just happen during sleep, but it gets set up in throughout that whole phase. So if you start eating when this is being released, all of these healing processes that go on during that time get delayed. It's essentially like jumping on a plane and going to Europe, how you physically feel the jet lag. Well, your body is going through that same jet lag without you even noticing it by eating while melatonin is being released, because the melatonin slows down the digestive tract. It makes you more insulin resistant, so that the sugar is building up in or staying within your body's causing damage there. So many things. And so like these lists here of, the bad stuff that can go wrong. I think it kind of speaks for itself in terms of what can go wrong when we eat, when melatonin is floating around in our body. So this is kind of the basis for the circadian rhythm. I can't see it as anything else other than, and it's not just light and food set our clocks. Those are the two biggest ones. There's many other factors that set our clocks, but it's good to just focus on light and food for it. And so anything that turns your system back on after that off switch comes, which is again, the sun setting, blue light. You see people wearing blue light blocker glasses at night. I highly recommend that. Blue light blocking films for your phones. TVs don't really have it, so there are gigantic films for TVs, but at least dimming it as low as possible. Anything that you can to avoid these work things, stresses, food, light, work, as best as possible to avoid once the sun goes down.
Man. Okay. I'm
And
doing
then,
some stuff wrong.
so what is kind of a circadian rhythm diet? Like there is a term out there called circadian fasting, but again, when you see all of this stuff of what goes wrong when you tackle it up, and I was just one of the people I met with today, her husband was sleeping on the couch because he's a night shift worker, and I don't think people understand just how big of a sacrifice it is to be a night shift worker. It is so stressful on the body. Way higher rates of cancer, chronic diseases, just because, I don't want to say just because of they're out of the circadian rhythm, but it definitely has a large role to play in their outcomes.
Now, so can like black curtains that block out the sun mirror nighttime for shift workers?
So there's blue light in everything. So yes, we could block out the sun during the daytime, which would be their night. But then at the night, what do you do for all the blue light that's going on during that time? You essentially got to walk around with not just like there's like the bulletproof version ones that are actually like goggles that go in, so no light can get in other than that goes through the blue light blocking filter. And that's there are things that can be done to help try to minimize the impact on your circadian rhythm, but I'm not really too up to speed on everything that can be done. I just know that it is something that if you are doing, you need to understand just how much of a strain that you're putting on your body.
Okay, we're ready for the next slide.
Yes. So, yeah, how we mentioned, like a lot of people refer to this as circadian fasting, but when we look at it in terms of all of the negative impacts that come from eating when melatonin and just limiting it to melatonin at this time happen, I can't look at it as fasting. This is just almost like the way it's supposed to be. I don't know a good term for that, but it would put you just following this. So we'll start with just going through the side here real quick. So we got the sunrise, want to wait and wake up with it. So I've been doing this for this is 6 weeks now. I don't need an alarm clock to wake up between 5 to 6 in the morning anymore. And that stopped like day 5, day 6, just maybe. And this was after like swearing off, I will never wake up at 6 in the morning or earlier to be at a formation at 6:30 and early. And just from the Army military side of it, I was like, I'm never getting up that early again. I can't not get up that early now. And so, the sun comes up, we want to wait about an hour to do our work, or start anything food wise, just to let everything kind of cycle in and cycle out, get the body warmed up. Everybody's a little bit different timelines. It's not, perfect little sun's up and whoop, everything's good to go. So give it a little bit of an hour buffer there. Don't drink your coffee again, and not just for the sunlight and that, but the adenosine factors as well. And so 3 meals a day is kind of what we get at a maximum. No snacking in between. And that's, and it needs to be at least around 4 hours in between each meal. And the reason for the 4 hours is we have something called the mobility, the MMC. What's it stand for? Essentially how our digestional tract works. So all of that gurgling, bubbling sounds, movement that you feel, and that's your MMC. That's your small intestine moving everything down, and in your large intestine moving everything across. It's essentially digestion going on, and that needs about 4 hours to happen. If we snack in during that time or eat during that time, we stop that MMC movement from occurring, and that can lead to
Well,
constipation
how
issues.
did Americans get on this thing of, hey, snack in between? That's kind of the standard.
Right.
The
I
food
think
Even do
it's
that with
very
kids.
right. It's a very reductionist approach to it, looking at just so people with who are hypoglycemic may need to, if their body cannot naturally control blood sugar levels, you may need to be supplementing so often with something that gives your body blood sugar so that you don't get hypoglycemic.
But not
There's others,
everybody in America needs to have
right,
a snack, morning and afternoon snack.
right. And so when I go into a lot of these homes to talk to the members, it's I eat after at maybe 30 minutes before going to bed. They'll essentially describe, and I have them list out, and it takes a little bit of time, like, because there's like, oh yeah, I forgot I always do this in the mornings for that. So that we end up looking at about a 16 to 17 hour window from when you break your fast to the last time that you put any calorie producing, pancreas exciting, or anything that would need to be digested into your body other than medications and water. We get up to 16, 17 hour time windows. And even if you take the circadian rhythm out of it, there's just about any a lot of people will say 12 hours should be the maximum time eating window. And again, they would call that time restricted fasting. And it's like, no, this is just the way the body, we got to have a better word for it than time restricted fasting. This is how the body is set up to work. So the 3 meals, typically best to do breakfast. And this just came out too. Most research on fasting in humans is so poorly structured. It's looked at like almost as calorie restrictive versus unlimited ad libitum eating. It's never done in a pure, like somebody who knows what fasting is and doing it legitimately. So finally, the research out of UAB just published that, I believe it was this year, don't know how many months ago, but for intermittent fasting of the 16-8, which is better doing, or 24, which is better, the breakfast lunch or the lunch dinner. It turned out that the breakfast lunch actually produces more autophagy, about 22%, 10% more activation of the SIRT1 gene, which is responsible for longevity. Lots of research going on that. I don't know if you've heard of NMN molecules, precursors for NAD, the energy cell, or the energy of our cells, if that's ringing a bell for you. But so SIRT1 genes is kind of where a lot of research is being done to make us live longer.
Okay, now, does a standard blood test that any of our participants would go to their primary care physician and get a blood panel, is that going to show what you just mentioned?
No. The autophagy is measured by, and both they're measured by but you'll never get an insurance company to pay for it. And I don't even think, like, if you go to requestatest.com, that any of the 2 labs that do, the 2 facilities that do request a test, I don't even think they'd offer it. Probably I'll have to look back up in the research again to see exactly what it was that they measured for those 2 being turned on. But yeah, I can't think of the name, but no, it's not a standard test, and I am certain that insurance would not pay for it.
But so
but
what is it called? What is the test?
What's that now?
What is the blood test again?
I'll have to look at up again. I cannot recall off the top of my head, but it's something that I hadn't even heard of before. reading this study. So yeah, I'll try and find that and send it to you.
Okay, all right. All right, so far what we are understanding is we have to learn a lot about our bodies and not just having the doctor take care of us.
Right.
Hmm.
And that's one of the biggest things I try to impress upon people as well during the meetings is, hey, what's your A1C? Do you have any of your labs here that we can go through? I don't remember, but doc said it was fine.
Mhm.
Oh, never, ever, ever settle for doc said it's fine. Especially when it comes to A1Cs, diabetes, because in terms of A1C, your diagnosis type 2 at 6.5 on an A1C or higher. Guess what treatment range is for your doctor to be kind of, I'm successful in your treatment right now. Less than 7.
Mhm.
So it'd be 6.5 is diabetic. Our treatment goal is less than 7. That's still diabetic.
Mhm.
I can't. I couldn't. That's not okay for me. I couldn't be like, oh, you're less than 7. Don't worry about it. You're still 6.7. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. You're still diabetic, but we're less than 7. So, yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of that as well is the eating at night. I talked about, and they,
Oh, yeah.
1 hour before I go to bed, I had this. So, but it's healthy. It's a handful of grapes. Oh, but it's healthy. It's something terrible, but still, it's like there's all these, but it's healthy. I can have it. It's healthy. It's like you
Mhm.
can't. I can't break. I can't make the melatonin not affect your gut. I can't make the melatonin not affect your cells. I can't make this. It's just the way it is. I can't.
And that's important what you're saying, because I'll do the same thing as a healthy snack at the end of the day, or if you're watching
Mhm.
your favorite TV program, well, I'm eating grapes, so that's healthy. But it's
Mhm.
8 o'clock at night and I'm going to bed in an hour.
Mhm.
Okay.
Or it's 2 hours after your meal and you're shutting down your MMC complex from being able to do its job and properly move food throughout the system so that you get the nutrients that you need from it. And again, with the breakfast portion of it, one of the other key factors is what we have in our gut living there, our symbiotes, the bacteria, the microflora, the microbiome that's in our gut.
Mhm.
They need to be woken up. They need to be fed. They need to excrete out what they excrete out that our body needs for immunity, for overall health, to protect us. So that breakfast is truly important to get those guys moving. Yes, you can skip it and still get all benefits of autophagy and SIRT1 activation and all that good stuff. And lots of people do, don't eat until you get your main thing that you need to do done for the day. And that's great. No problem with that. But just understand you are neglecting those little critters in your gut when you do that. And uh, they will help you throughout your day as well. Don't think of food as something that is necessarily bad. Like it's we have it for a reason. Like it's a blessing for a reason. Those guys are in us for a reason. It's all for a reason. So let's optimize. That's why it's called optimizing. Do it however you want, but this, to me, from what I've seen so far, this is the most optimal way to activate your body's circadian rhythm and all of the little critters living inside of us.
Any comments, Sandra?
Yes, I didn't realize that melatonin, once it begins that release cycle, actually would cause an increase in insulin resistance if you start eating or continue eating. And that's really good to know. I am concerned about your statement that the best time, that the highest amount of autophagy occurs when you eat breakfast and lunch and skip dinner. I'm really hurt to hear that, because
I know, right?
the 8:16 that has worked best for me is my window is 11 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yes.
And that just works wonders for me. And I'm
Yes.
getting up between 5 36.
Yeah.
Okay. So that just works great for me. And you said, no, eat breakfast. As far as I'm concerned, breakfast, I know Kellogg started that slogan,
the
breakfast, the
slogan.
most
Yeah.
important meal of the day. They make
Mhm.
breakfast food. I expect that from them. But
Yes.
I didn't expect
And
it from you. I'm hurt.
I know. And I never wanted, I was the same when this came out. I was like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. But it's not saying that the lunch dinner is bad by me. You still get great effects. It's just you get a little bit better when it's breakfast. And if so, one of the things in activations of the SIRT1 longevity genes, which fasting does, is it's got to hurt a little bit. Like there's going to be some, and so what do you, it just in your head right now, what do you think would be harder for you to do? Lunch, dinner, or breakfast, lunch? There's a couple other hard things that activate the SIRT1 longevity genes, being saunas, and so exposure to really, really high temperatures, and ice baths, exposure to really, really cold temperatures.
Nope.
And you'll see some people that can get into an ice because they do it so much, they can step into an ice bath, not shiver, not shake, not breathe deep. And so at some point you just became cold adapted, and I think this isn't necessarily played out in the research, but I think it ties into what we were saying, with the breakfast, lunch versus lunch, dinner. When it's no longer hard for you, are we getting the benefits from it? So the people who become so cold adapted, are they still getting the activation of the SIRT1 gene? They're probably getting amazing health benefits, but the actual longevity piece of it, without that shock factor that actually releases the shock protein, stimulates the brown fat increase. I wouldn't be surprised just how weird the body is that you stop getting the benefit from it. And so like with, and one of the things here with did I put down 16-8 or anything like that on this slide? I don't think it's, but so with a 16-8 diet, or intermittent fasting plan, the one, it doesn't take necessarily where to put that 8 hours. Their circadian rhythm, very strong, that 8 hours has to be in the sunlight. The other portion to it is, even with a 16-8, you can become adapted to that. So it's the variety, the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing, that helps keep that benefit going. So,
Okay.
So I need to change the time frame, like what Denise was just saying, make that happen earlier in the day in the cold months, so that I've got some change in it, and I'm not just accustomed to one thing.
Yeah. So once the winter times, this happens naturally. You don't even have to change it, because you're just always 1 hour. It ends no matter what. It can't start 1 hour after sunrise. It can't go past 1 hour before sunset, type of deal. You don't have to control that. That's already made up for you by the sun itself. You don't have to change anything technically, because you're just always, throw away your watch. It's just 1 hour before the sun goes down, type of deal. So you're not necessarily, the season itself, the circadian cycle of the seasons presents the variability for you to naturally change and not get adapted to a specific time frame. Okay. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Now, I hate that the society tells you it's time to get up, it's time to eat, it's time to do, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Especially
you eat when you're hungry.
Because it's telling you to eat 5 times a day, and that's not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I said, with the most important thing, like, and in no way does it say, oh, well, you've been doing lunch, dinner, now you got to do, in no way saying that. It's, what are you thriving at? Are you thriving on your current plan? Are you thriving or surviving? And if you're thriving, like, that's awesome. But if you start noticing that benefits, health, spirit, however you look at it, if they seem to plateau, that's one of the 5 pitfalls of intermittent fasting, is our body adapted to the schedule. Like 16-8 was such a big change when it started out. Now our body's used to it. Now we need to go and do 3 meals in a 12-hour, and then, or maybe do one, or then do a 24. Like, ideally in my head, like I've got this a computer program that randomly generates the weekly diet. Like I'll know I want 1 OMAD a week or 2 OMADs, or maybe I do a 48-hour, but it's all randomly, it's in there and what my body would need overall throughout the week. And then I just, in the morning, I pick up and here's your schedule for the day. Dang it, today's no food. Okay, all right. Or, today is, you got 3 meals, 4 hours apart. Okay, dang it. Or, here's your 2 meals and they're both it's breakfast and lunch, or here's your 2 meals and it's lunch, dinner type of deal. And so just the keeping of the guessing, the variability that keeps the body confused.
Okay, I found variability helpful in a combination of fasting things, the intermittent on the 8-16, but splurging on weekends. It might be a 10-hour window on weekend, eating at different times. And the other part of that is on 2 days a week, not having anything solid until 4 o'clock. So it's 1 meal a day that day. So there's some change built into it. So that shouldn't be a problem. Yeah. But I want to maximize the autophagy and the release of human growth hormones, and
yes,
so I need to fine tune this.
Yeah, so fine tuning it, it would suggest that breakfast and lunch would be the best way to do that. And I think the reason for that is, one, it's a little bit naturally harder for us to, after eating 2 meals, not have eat anything else after the lunch meal, and then. Whereas it's easier to, when we haven't eaten, to just be like, okay, I don't need to do it. Yeah, I've got something else to occupy my mind type deal. But then that dinner one, in my mind, it's a little bit harder. Then the other part of that is that gut bacteria activating. We don't know for certain whether or not, there's only a couple bacteria just in general that we know have circadian rhythms. We don't know if the healthy various types of bacteria in our gut have circadian rhythms. But I would be shocked if they didn't, honestly. And so not only do we need to get all of our organs in sync with the sun, but and the sunset, but the bacteria in our gut need to get activated at the right time as well, so that they produce, so that they're optimally producing.
Yeah, it's amazing how much of this is not a mind game, but I guess just with TV commercials or just our American culture, we wake up and go, oh, I'm hungry, or we go for the coffee and we don't even think about these things. All right, wow, fascinating. Okay, ready for the next slide?
And we did
on the gut bacteria. I make fermented veggies, so my afternoon meal is I'm getting a tablespoon of something fermented, so that I don't have a problem with that, but I am conscious of the need for that.
And that's what I try. So in terms of, what bacteria make it through the gut or through the hydrochloric acid in the stomach and into the location where it needs to go, it seems that having that first gives it the best shot of the most bacteria from if you're doing sauerkraut, kimchi, whatever it is, getting to the gut, is having that first.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
I used to do drives down to South Carolina to get raw milk. And so milk also is kind of a buffer on the acid. And so everything from there can get down a lot better as well. The raw milk is an excellent source of
we have herd sharing in this area, and I was a part of a herd sharing so that I could access raw milk too.
Yeah.
I don't drink milk.
And then
I don't drink pasteurized, but I could drink the raw milk. But I would make what's the thing you make with fermented liquid?
Yogurt.
Kefir?
No.
Cottage cheese.
No, it's you buy it in jars and glasses now. What is it? They sell it in the stores now.
Kombucha.
It's not kombucha.
It doesn't sound good for
but it's a fermented thing. I make fermented milk.
Milk.
Okay, y'all, come on, get on to the stuff here. Talk about that.
We'll get you on the ferment train one of these days.
No way.
Okay, so kind of approaches here for fasting. And again, I still think that 3 meals 4 hours apart at a minimum during the daylight hours is only during is not fasting. It's like the most, it's the upper limit of normal, so to speak. And then so to get the spiritual and how do we train ourselves? There are some people who have the willpower, or there's this great study. I don't even just want to call it willpower, but the faith to be able to, like, that is so hard. I when I did my water fast starting not 2 Thursdays ago at that class, I made it 4 days, but I couldn't go longer because doing the walks, and like when I do walks at sunrise and sunset, I couldn't get out of bed to do the sunrise walk, and I was like, okay, no, that comes first to me, and so so I broke the fast. That just, and like I was still doing 2-hour walks in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon type of deal during that time, driving 5 hours, and so I didn't necessarily set it up right. I need to time it a little bit better next time, but anywho, so
what we've been looking at for these 8 weeks in our fasting in Fayetteville class is the fact that I see the natural rhythm here that God has provided. And so to say fasting spiritually is to set aside that pleasure phase so that we can humble ourselves, be intentional to listen to God, and look to Him to stimulate us, sustain us while we do some of this discipline, which is what week 8 was about, disciplining ourselves to get into this rhythm. Even is a challenge for many people.
For many, yeah. And that's it. Would change it, like once it was like seeing something so clearly for the first time, you can't unsee it. And with the medical background, it really helped to dial it in for me, just how powerful and incredible, and it was like looking at the face of God, so to speak, seeing this and the benefits, the side effects of not doing it. Like I just can't unsee that now. And so I hope others may be able to see it in some way like that as well. But for those who can't, then there's this, I can't find it, like, to actually get my hands on, but there's this great study of, they put mice into a water bucket, let's say, I don't know exactly what kind of tank it was, until they just about drowned, and which was about at 2 hours. They took them out, dried them off, and put them back in. Guess how many hours they went that the second time they were put in?
2 hours.
18. Because they knew somebody was coming for them. And so, like, with on this first side here, the novice approach, if you will, need to find a better term for that, but that first time you skip that meal, that first time that you eat it in just the daylight hours, that first time, once you get through the day and know that you wake up next and you're still alive, you feel good, you're still, like, it gives you that being pulled out of the water, soaking wet, and and now you can, it's a good first step, so to speak. But yeah, so I try to recommend for people to get their window within the daylight hours as a first approach, and each step is about 2 weeks, because it's about how long it takes to get a habit kind of established, whereas in about 3 months we see the physiological changes produce out of it. So then, trying the just circadian for 2 weeks, and then not skipping the dinner, but adding and that's the big thing also with intermittent. People think it's a calorie restriction. It is in no way intended to restrict calories. You take all of those calories that you were going to eat at dinner and add them onto your breakfast, or if you prefer to do the breakfast, whatever works best for you, taking one and moving it to the other. And taking that and adding it to it, so that you're not cutting out those calories from the day, you're eating them combined with the others. It's not calorie restriction.
Okay.
And yeah, and then once you're able to do a 2 meal a day and get kind of comfortable with that, then trying an OMAD, 1 meal a day.
Okay. All right. And so now, again, remember we started talking about, would your recommendation be much, much different for persons who may have diabetes or taking other prescriptions?
Yes, absolutely. It's the anybody, and I don't. This is why on the last slide it's got, you know, I don't want to put out any information for people who are on insulin, type 1 or type 2, about this, because the easiest way to die is to get insulin put into your body and not eat. So it's got to be something that's very well planned and thought out in conjunction with people who know you and support you and can help you, and you got your doctor, your primary care providers, or your endocrinologist blessing on it. And
So could that be for them to, maybe their fasting could be portion control?
Well,
Or
as
taking,
long as the portion control isn't doesn't take you out of the appropriate amount of calories that you quote unquote need for the day,
okay.
based off of your ideal or desired body weight, whatever you're trying to get, that isn't too low from where you're starting. It's not.
So it's really a specialized concerns for people who are diabetic or other medications. So maybe they can do things like fast TV programs or fast being on a video game or fast something like that.
Yeah, or a specific food out of it. But so the only reason it's that I couch it a little bit like that, if you aren't on insulin, you can still do it on insulin. For type 2 diabetics, 80 to 90% of them can become fully functional, normal pancreas, non-diabetic people again. The only ones who can't are those who have effectively burnt out their beta cells in their pancreas that produce your own insulin. If you've done that, and there's a test for it called C-peptide, if you've done that, you're going to be on the insulin no matter what you get your A1C. You can still get a 4.7 A1C, you're just going to still be on insulin. So the only reason I kind of couch it is for people on insulin. I would not want somebody who is in the habit of doing an insulin injection at night to be in a fasting state, and then their blood sugar goes so low while they're asleep that bad things happen.
Okay.
So,
but I guess so then a person who is diabetic knows all of their limitations already.
not necessarily, but so if they aren't on, so metformin's very popular one, Januvia, another popular one. Even if you're on stuff like Ozempic, the once weekly type stuffs, by and large, fine to discuss and start doing circadian eating, then leading into going down that left-hand approach, just monitoring yourself more closely. You have to, there are some people who don't have glucometers or like, yeah, I don't want to prick my finger. I don't recommend it for them because you can't monitor yourself. Who don't have blood pressure cuffs. I don't recommend it because you can't monitor yourself. So during that 2-week phase, when you're changing everything, it needs to be way more monitored than you've ever done it before. So taking blood pressures multiple times a day, taking your blood sugar multiple times a day, particularly before you go to bed, particularly as soon as you wake up. And it can be done. I don't want to say easy, but it can be done, absolutely. For people who are type 2 diabetic, they don't have to say, oh, I can't fast because I'm diabetic. I just couch it as nobody who takes insulin listen to us type of deal, because you need to be doing it with somebody.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Okay, we're ready for the next slide.
And yep, all right, go for it. Yeah.
What is that it?
Well, yeah, for the one on the right,
I mean,
this is more like where the extra gonna need to find a little bit more. This is when you want to go beyond 48 hours. So to me, a fast or fasting is it's 24 hours. Like it's not 24. It's you haven't eaten in that day period, from sunrise to sunset. That to me, I'm not trying to gatekeep what fasting is, but just for my own personal take on it, that is what a fast is going one period of daylight without eating.
So it's not 24 hours.
Right. A period. So we in the military we call it a POD, period of darkness, but it's a POD as in period of daylight. Now it by every technical definition, yes, it stops at like 30, or you can say even as soon as you stop eating, the counter of your fast begins. Me personally, my journey through it is a fast is a full period of daylight. Because like when we talk about doing 1 meal a day, OMAD, or 2 meals a day, or if you do 3 meals a day, it's, depending on your activity level, 18 to 2,500 calories. I got everything that I needed today. If you know how hard it is to eat 2,500 calories in one meal? It
no.
is difficult. So that one meal is usually like an hour and a half long. But so I can't really say, it'd be like a 23-hour one. It's longer than 1 hour. But so, it wasn't really a fast because I got all my calories in for the day. So to me, fasting is you went without, and that's a full day.
Okay.
All
right.
In fasting for spiritual reasons, there's a replacement aspect of it. It's not only not eating the natural, it's adding to it the spiritual time and the spiritual food, which also impacts the motivational piece and the ability of the body to adjust to what you're doing. So fasting for the medical and health reasons is proven for millennia, and fasting for the spiritual reasons also proven
proven,
for
yeah.
millennia to have tremendous benefit for the body. The circadian rhythm aspect of it, I had not paid much attention to, and I'm glad to see this breakdown because I will be paying much attention to it in the future, and I know that will help other people too. That's really good. Oh, the fermented beverage I was making was kefir. I may not
Okay,
be saying it right. Kefir.
Yeah.
I was making that, which is good for the body.
Yes, absolutely. And I had never listened to Christian radio rock station or Christian music stations before, except for when I went past the 36-hour mark. So that I had kind of done a day and a half before, and that was where I considered kind of comfortable a little bit, and doing that. When I got into day 2, oh yeah, it was, especially when I had to go pick up my daughter in the mountains, and we went to Smoke on Wheels, something like a barbecue, like just the best, most beautiful part. And so she's sitting there when I'm getting her like, whoo, and then we go to the fudge factory, and then we go to the ice cream, and so I was. She was like, "Why are you listening to? I've never heard you listen to." I was like, "You, I have to right now." That is for me. That is when the struggle and the suffering came, and it's probably just because I've done. So I have such a long history of doing intermittent fasting that's where my struggle is. But I can totally see it for people who have the 17-hour windows, trying to just get it into a 12-hour window, having that same emotions that and need for the spiritual port, and seeing how important the spiritual side of it is. Because when on that other one I talked about, like, your intention, it begins the day before at nighttime. I try to write down my goals, intentions, a timeline for the next day, and then go to sleep, your brain processes everything you thought you were
Mhm.
stressed about, gets put in one little box, and you realize you wake up, it wasn't that bad. And then things get put on other shelves of higher priority. And then you wake back up, you look at your schedule again, and you're like, nope, that's out. This is in, that's going up, that's going down. But once it has to be on that day, at that morning when you wake up, it is, I am going to fast today. This is my oath. This is my it is
Oops.
written in blood. It cannot be broken. Um,
Uh-huh.
and,
That's
and
what
you
you're
have to,
saying here. The day before, yeah.
Would you put the book back up, Mastering Diabetes? I didn't get the author's name.
Oh, is
It
that
was on, it's on the other slide.
the next slide? Oh, because he was talking about this fasting part or
Yes.
setting your intentions before you go to
Mhm.
bed.
Yes. It's very important to set your goals
Mhm.
so you
Yeah,
can
and
monitor yourself. I'm interested in reading the book you mentioned on circadian rhythms, because I'd
yes,
like to see what would be said about extended fasting and how that works with extended fasting.
and
So here's the book.
I'm
Go ahead.
I'm wanting to, I'm trying to think into, so the other book is The Circadian Code by Sitchin Panda. Really great backstory on him too, and that he gives in the first beginning of the book. But I don't think it goes too much into fasting with the circadian code and the effects on it. There are others that look into it from the uh, perspective of at 18 hours to 20, generally speaking, autophagy should start occurring by day 20 or hour 24. Increased production of stem cells and their activity should be going up. And by day 5, you're really hitting a sweet spot of maximum production of new stem cells and stem cell activity. Autophagy's already kind of died down by the end. There are a lot of people who put out the timelines of, I don't know, say a lot of people, but who have looked into what benefits the body has by certain days of going into the fast.
Okay.
But I don't think it's in the circadian code.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Dr. Steve, thank you so very much for your gift of time.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm glad we were able to get together and discuss this, and I hope it's able to benefit somebody. But yeah, and that's what, like diabetes type 2, not on insulin. This last slide here can absolutely go for it. Just talk with your doctor, let them know your intent. And I really came in when we talked about, oh, your doctor saying, oh, you're fine. Oh, what is fasting? Why would you want to do that? There are bad doctors out there, and you have to find one that believes that you have been given the power to heal yourself, maybe not complete, but make your life what you with more optimal.
Yeah, yeah.
And without necessarily needing a drug for every single thing in the world.
And we appreciate your detail and awareness, and again lets us know our responsibility to do what Sandra calls temple maintenance, to take care of this body that God has given us. Well, thank you so much for adding your expertise to all of our resources and research and experts that have come in to help during this 12-week fasting in Fayetteville.